Today we're breaking down everything that happened in Agent Kim Reactivated episodes 6 to 10. I'm going to explain the Korean language and cultural references and point out details that you might have missed along the way. If you want to watch my episode 1 to 5 breakdown, check out the link in the description. Episode 6 opens on a brief 2006 flashback. Kim Song-an-soo and Park Jin-chul are assigned to protect the US president's daughter. They don't trust each other yet and they keep getting in each other's way. While monitoring the target, Park Jin-chul sits there playing guitar. The song is Messiah of the Fallen Angel by Kim Kyung-ho. He was arguably the biggest rock star in the 90s, who shockingly topped the charts in 97 at a time when rock was declining in popularity in Korea in favor of hip-hop and dance music. Song-an-soo is doing yoga while he monitors the target as well. This pose is a parody of a famous scene from the movie Oldboy. In Oldboy, they used a wire to pull off this shot. Here, they just used the guy in a green suit lifting him up by his feet. Back in the present, Minji gets taken by Chu Gang-chan and brought to his house. The SMD, led by Kang Guk-chul, storms the place. For a second, it looks like they rescued Minji, but they're actually using her as a bait to lure Agent Kim. Meanwhile, Park Jin-chul goes to pick up his weapons and runs into his wife Kang Ji-young first. In the original manhwa, she's an army major and Park Jin-chul's superior. Here, she's a marine instead to match the changes to her husband's background. Park Jin-chul is scared of no man, but he's clearly scared of his wife, who scolds him for staying out overnight without permission. He explains the situation and asks if he can go help Minji and Kim. She lets him go, but tells him to pick up tteokbokki on the way home, spice level 2 with cheese. Tteokbokki is the most popular street food in Korea, and it's just as popular in restaurants as it is for takeout and delivery. It's practically accepted as fact in Korea that men's number one food is 제육볶음 or stir-fried pork, and women's number one food is tteokbokki. A lot of places let you choose your spice level, which is why Kang Ji-young specifies level 2. Many restaurants use shinramyeon, the most common spicy ramyeon, as their baseline for level 1. That's already quite spicy, so if you're visiting Korea and don't handle heat well, level 1 will likely be plenty for you. Song-an-soo arrives at SMD headquarters and sneaks around through the air vents. He rigs up a rope and a water bottle to slowly drip water down into the power generators, timed so that lights will go out after a while. As he backs up in the vents, he goes da 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 dee da da da. That's the melody from Beethoven's Fur Elise. A lot of older Korean cars, especially larger vans and trucks, use this melody as their reverse beeper instead of the beep beep, so that's where the ad-lib comes from. Song-an-soo finds Minji but gets stopped by Kang Guk-chul and his forces. That's when Park Jin-chul shows up and fires a rocket launcher to blast through the wall. As he fires it, he goes 뻥이요. The actual Korean word for firing a weapon is 발사. 뻥 is the sound of an explosion, but it's also a Korean slang for a lie or a joke. So you can say 뻥치지 마, which means stop lying, or 뻥이야, which means it's a lie, often as a joke. So when Park Jin-chul says 뻥이요, it's a play on words. The rocket that blows the hole in the wall is real, but he also fires a bunch of blank rounds to pin soldiers down later, and that's the lie. He also sets up a claymore mine to hold them while they escape, which turns out to be fake as well, so that's another 뻥 or a lie. Kim finally arrives and takes Deputy Minister of National Security Im Do-yeon hostage. Im Do-yeon is a guy who is in Chu Gang-chan's pocket, so more on him later. Since Im Do-yeon outranks everyone at SMD, the soldiers and agents drop their weapons and let Kim and his friends leave with Minji. This is also where Kim uses his signature weapon, unsa or silver wire. Throughout season 1, we see him use his specially manufactured wire mostly to set up traps. But in the manhwa, unsa is Kim's go-to weapon, often used to take out multiple enemies at once. He can even read vibrations through the wires to track enemy movements in darkness or through smoke bombs. Episode 7 opens with another flashback. Kim gets discharged from the Korean intelligence with Song-an-soo and Park Jin-chul there to congratulate him. Park Jin-chul hands him tofu to eat, which is Korean tradition for people getting out of prison. Tofu, or dubu as it's pronounced in Korean, is white and clean, symbolizing a fresh start. It's also cheap, full of protein, and easy on the stomach, which is why it became the go-to food for someone just getting out of prison. Song-an-soo mocks Park Jin-chul, pointing out that Kim is getting discharged, not getting out of prison. Park Jin-chul says, "What's the difference between this place and prison?" This tells us that Kim was more or less being forced to work for the South Korean intelligence against his will. Back in the present day, Kim and his friends managed to neutralize the SMD soldiers and escape with Minji. As Park Jin-chul arms the claymore mine, he says, 무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다. That's the phrase from Korean's children's game Red Light, Green Light, the same one that introduced Squid Game to the world. They successfully escaped the SMD facilities, but instead of heading straight to a hideout, they do the most Korean thing possible. They stop to eat. Eating a proper meal is a big deal in Korean culture. Instead of asking, "How are you?" we ask, 밥 먹었어? Which means did you eat? That's how much we care about eating. They stop for 장어 or eel, a dish known for giving you energy and stamina. After the meal, they are ambushed by Jugangcheon's people who use sleeping gas. Kim and Song Han-soo manage to stay awake and fight back, and Park Jin-chul joins once he wakes up too, eating a Kopiko candy as he does. Honestly, I love how blatant the product placements are in the show. Instead of half-heartedly working brands into an actual acting, they just lean into it and use it as a comic relief. Anyway, the action scene here is epic. Song Han-soo takes on like 10 guys at once, Kim jumps into a moving truck, and Park Jin-chul goes one-on-one against Nam Shil-jang. As he finishes him off, Park Jin-chul drops the signature line from the manhwa, 안경 쓴 아저씨들은 건들지 말자, which means don't mess with the middle-aged men wearing glasses. They make their way to Jugangcheon's house where Kim confronts him one-on-one. He beats Jugangcheon within inches of death, but before he can land the final blow, Minji sees him and tells him not to kill Jugangcheon. Kim listens to her and tells Jugangcheon to turn himself in. Kim also turns himself in to the general he used to work for at Cheonsan-budae on the condition that they keep Minji safe. For a moment, we're led to believe that he's been handed over to North Korea, and Kim goes through a brutal interrogation. But when he finally breaks free and forces the door open, he finds himself standing in a room back in South Korea with the general and Kangukchul waiting. The whole thing was a loyalty test. The general says that door is like the 38th parallel. The 38th parallel is the line of latitude sitting 38 degrees north of the equator. The US and the Soviet Union used that line to split Korea into two occupation zones at the end of World War II. When the Korean War ended in 1953, a new border was drawn based on which side held which territory at the time of the ceasefire. That line sits close to the 38th parallel, but it's not straight, and there's a 2-kilometer buffer zone, the infamous DMZ, running along both sides. So technically, the 38th parallel isn't the actual border anymore, but in South Korea, especially lots of older people, still casually call the border 38선, or the 38th parallel. Anyway, in exchange for one final mission, the general and Kangukchul offer Kim and Minji new identities and their freedom. The job is to protect the North Korean general seeking asylum in the south. Kim accepts on one more condition. They release Song Han-soo and Park Jin-chul, who were arrested for helping him. They agree, but Kangukchul can't resist one last petty move. He releases two of them in Haenam, the southernmost point on the Korean peninsula. Outside of Jeju Island, it's about as far as Seoul as you can get. And there's actually a village there called 땅끝 마을, which translates to the village at the edge of the land. As Song Han-soo and Park Jin-chul make their way back to Seoul, Kim heads out to pick up the North Korean general seeking asylum, who turns out to be none other than Lee Il-young. Remember, he's the former head of North Korean intelligence, the same man who betrayed Kim and his team back in the day. Kim is shocked, but he keeps his composure and moves Lee Il-young to the safe house. The North Korean delegation arrives in South Korea to discuss the terms of a joint venture to create a free trade zone. Jugangcheon has several politicians in his pocket, so his hotel gets chosen as the venue for the negotiation. He's also been promised that if the project moves forward, his construction company will get the contract to build it. In real life, even though North and South Korea remains technically at war, two sides have actually cooperated on major economic projects before, mostly during the late 90s and early 2000s, when the South Korean government leaned into a softer diplomatic approach towards the North. The biggest example is Kaesong or Kaesong Industrial Complex. It opened in 2004 just north of the DMZ, letting South Korean companies build factories there and hire North Korean workers directly. At its peak, over 50,000 people were working there. It periodically shut down and reopened whenever political tensions flared, until it finally closed for good in 2016 after South Korea imposed sanctions on North Korea in response to its nuclear missile testing. Back to the show, Jugangcheon is also paying off Im Do-yeon from national security for intel on Kim. He learns that Kim is protecting a defecting North Korean general, and he decides to use it. He goes straight to the North Korean delegation and tells them about Kim and Lee Il-young, along with where to find them. He wants his revenge badly and is willing to do pretty much anything to get his hands on Kim. The North Korean agents storm the hideout, but Kim manages to escape with Lee Il-young. Kim then goes to Song Han-soo and Park Jin-chul for help. He finds Song Han-soo eating 생라면, or uncooked ramen, which is a classic Korean snack. The brand is specifically samyang라면, which is a callback to Squid Game, since that's the same brand eaten uncooked in the show as well. Park Jin-chul, being super Korean again, asks him if he's eaten. Lee Il-young chimes in and says that he's hungry and tells him to order food. Song Han-soo replies, 우리 n분의 1 할 거야, which means we're splitting the bill. n분의 1 literally translates to 1/n, a math term that's become slang for for splitting the bill evenly. There's also a more casual version, which is 엔빵. So you could say 엔빵 하자, which means let's split the bill or the cost. Before they can order food, Kangukcheol and the SMD storm the place and take Lee Il-young away. It turns out that Chu Gang-chan has been pulling the strings behind the scenes, and the North Korean representative shut down the negotiation until South Korea hands over Kim and Lee Il-young. The South Korean general agrees to comply, knowing full well that Kim will escape and recover Lee Il-young on his own, keeping the whole thing off books and away from political fallout. Predictably, Kim does escape. With the help of Song Han-soo and Park Jin-chul, along with 2 other SMD agents, they put together a plan to infiltrate the hotel and extract Lee Il-young from the North Koreans. They do rock, paper, scissors to determine who's going to hide in the trunk of the car. Song Han-soo loses and gets stuck with it. What follows is a funny exchange between him and Park Jin-chul that's hard to translate, so let me take my time explaining. Song Han-soo says, 가위바위보 안 한다 했지, which means I told you I didn't want to play rock, paper, scissors. Park Jin-chul replies, 했지, which means you did. But he hits the last syllable hard, so it comes out more like 했지. He does the same thing later. Normally you would just say 재밌지, but it's really stretching the same 지 sound at the end. That is done on purpose because 지 is another word for scissors. In Korean, rock, paper, scissors is 가위바위보, which is scissors, rock, paper. I know it's in different orders, but that's how we do things here in Korea. But there's a related game called 묵집바 that can also be played right after a round of rock, paper, scissors. So whoever wins the first round gets to attack. They call out 묵, which is rock, 지, scissors, or 빠, paper, while changing their hands to match what they just said. If their hands ends up matching the other person's hand, the attacker wins. Since everyone else showed scissors and Song Han-soo showed paper, he lost. But Park Jin-chul leaning so hard into that G sound implies that whole thing was rigged against Song Han-soo from the start. Anyway, they managed to infiltrate the hotel, but the North Korean agents eventually catch on, and it turns into a full fight scene. Song Han-soo and Park Jin-chul start counting the agents they take out, turning into a competition, much like the famous kill count rivalry between Gimli and Legolas at the Battle of Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings movie. Kim also extracts Lee Il-young and hands him over to the SMD agents. It's not over for Kim and his friends though. While they're preoccupied with the mission, Chu Gang-chan sent his people to kidnap Park Jin-chul and Song Han-soo's kids. He forces Kim, Song Han-soo, and Park Jin-chul into a cage match to death. It's a big mistake because they break free and capture Chu Gang-chan. Later, Kim makes a call to a mysterious old man and asks him to dismantle Chu Gang-chan's company. The old man that Kim calls is Cho Pyong-yeon. In the original manhwa, he's the founder and CEO of Cheonhaechon Group, a mega corporation that started out decades earlier as a single pawn shop specializing in identity laundering. Over time, it grew into a massive company with powerful multinational influence. Cho Pyong-yeon is also the man who helped Kim launder his identity and settle into a new life in South Korea. He's also the one who gave Song Han-soo his personality patch, the thing that keeps the monster inside him under control. Meanwhile, the South Korean general asks Lee Il-young questions about the North. Lee Il-young says, "What's the rush?" And the general smiles and says, "빨리빨리, 남쪽은 원래 그래요," which means quickly, quickly. This is how it is in the South. 빨리빨리 literally means quickly, quickly, and one could say it's one of the defining traits of South Korea. It's everywhere. People sprinting to catch the subway train, same-day delivery on pretty much anything you order online, restaurants where you press the table buzzer instead of waiting for a server to come to you. The culture traces back to Korea's rapid industrialization starting in the 1960s when the country managed to compress decades of development into a few short ones, which led to a huge economic boom. That urgency became baked into how people worked and eventually how people live. As a Korean, I'm used to the ppalli-ppalli culture, but I don't always love it. Of course, I do love how fast services are here. You know, for example, if something breaks or something needs installing, someone will show up and take care of it within like the hour. But it also makes it kind of hard to slow down sometimes and actually enjoy the small things. Do you have something similar in your country? Or if you live in Korea, how do you feel about the ppalli-ppalli culture? Comment down below with your thoughts. Lee Il-young cooperates and gives up everything he knows. Later that night, Kim takes him away and hands him over to the North Korean agent that Lee Il-young lied to earlier. The agent says a quick death is too good for him and sends him back to North Korea. Kim and Minji finally get their peace. They're reunited under new identities with help from the SMD. As they walk off into the sunset, Kim asks Minji what she wants to be when she grows up. She says maybe a singer, and Kim pauses and replies, 아빠 닮았으면 노래는 안 돼, which is, if you take after me, singing isn't your thing. He also says, 아빠는 음치야, which means I'm tone deaf. This is kind of a meta joke joke because in real life, Sojusuf has actually put out a fair amount of music. It's mostly rap, and he's talked openly about being a little bit tone deaf, so this line has some truth to it. Season 1 ends with Kim going to work to repay the old man for dismantling Chugangchan's company. He shows up, and the boss there tells him that he's about to go through a job interview. The guy's massive, and he and Kim square off, ready to fight. In the original manhwa, this is Lee Do-gyu, the head of Baekho Ilyokso, or White Tiger Job Center. It's essentially a mercenary group that supplies muscle to organizations across the underworld. Lee Do-gyu himself is one of those classic morally gray characters, mostly driven by money, but capable of genuine loyalty and even empathy depending on the situation. It looks like season 2 is set up to run on Lee Do-gyu handing Kim missions, opening up new storylines. So that's all I have for today. Comment down below with your thoughts or questions. I'll see you next time.